Okay, so this one is like the ugly reality of early recovery. Some of you guys will remember that. But I changed the title a little bit and added some things just about unrealistic expectations. And it's so easy. You know, we talk about things like the identified patient, the family dynamic, and it's so easy to think, well, once they're not using anymore, right? Once the identified patient isn't using anymore or isn't stuck in whatever that dysfunctional process is, then we should all return to normal pretty quickly, right? Everything is going to get back to order. Because, and of course, you guys can attest to that, as in the family dynamic, this dysfunction, or we'll say the dysfunctional process, has been going on for a while. You know, some of us a little bit darker, some of us a little bit longer, but it's all relevant to whatever that family dynamic is. And so it's exhausting, and I think I'm going to work on this one for next week. It's exhausting, it's terrifying, it's wrought with fear, confusion, ongoing anxiety, hopelessness. We could just keep going on describing it. It'd be interesting for you guys to kind of share some of your input too. So I'm going to blow through the board so you have time to do that. So by the time, well, let me finish. Let me finish what I was talking about. So we've got all these characteristics that are at play, with the hope that, man, if they would just quit that thing, if we could just lead them to quit that thing, whatever that thing is, then we can get back to normal. So by the time that happens, it's easy to still be stuck in that thinking. Okay, well, they're not using anymore, they're not drinking anymore, what's going on? How come things aren't back to normal yet? So that's why we're going to run through the unrealistic expectations, or what to expect in early recovery, and learn what realistic expectations should look like, or what they actually do look like, but it's a matter of us accepting those. And so, yeah, take that if you need to. Okay, so, you know, and this is everybody. I kind of put it in the first person and in the family, you know, us and them. But the whole recovery process begins, and we'll say, from the point we're not using or engaging in that particular behavior, you know, whatever that might be, whether it's drinking or using or just whatever the compulsion is, just it looks like bad behavior. We'll just say the bad behavior. When that stops and the process of change begins, this is where we start kind of exercising unrealistic expectations. Well, since I'm not using anymore, everything should return to normal. Once I or they feel better, things should be great again. We tend to gauge the success of this process on the person's feelings, right? Whether it's physical, emotional. Well, you said that you feel better now, so how come you're not doing better by now? You know, whatever that might look like, and that's a big part of the unrealistic expectations. Is we tend to set in our mind specific ideas and deadlines. You know, well, now that you're not using, you should, you know, within whatever 30 days, you should have a full-time job, be back at school, have bought a new car, have money back in the bank, you know, whatever that might be. Some of it could be realistic. Most of it, I think, is unrealistic. Viewing the dysfunctional process that led to this point as behavioral is a mistake. Even though that's what we see, right? That's the primary characteristic, certainly coming out of substance abuse, substance use, addiction, however you want to define it. It looks an awful lot like bad behavior. And that's one of the reasons, I think that's the primary reason why society has such a hard time accepting the disease model of addiction, because the primary characteristic is bad behavior. So we go, man, if they would just implement good behavior, then everything will be okay. But it's wrong thinking. There's another part of that too. Diminished morals right? If you just get your head out of your rear, if you would just get back to church, if you would just da-da-da-da-da. I've got a whole list of this. I'm working on this thing that I'm going to talk about next week, but I've got all this broken down actually for families, and it's very interesting. I'm going to give you all a copy of it. Of course, morals are impacted. Of course, our values are impacted. Of course, behavior is impacted, but that's not the problem. That's the result of the problem. So in moving through change and really establishing a solid, lasting foundation for recovery, we've got to understand what the real problem is. And it's hard to move past that when the behavior is so bad, right? We would not treat a cancer patient, we wouldn't think of a cancer patient the way we think of addicts in early recovery, right? Because we accept this idea that they have a disease that was beyond their ability to control, and here's the solution, and if we'll just work in that solution, we'll get a better person, right? We'll get healed, we'll get our loved one back. Well, when it comes to addiction and thieving and lying and manipulating and so forth and so on, right? You guys have your own list. It's easy to say, well, we just need to change behavior. Now, behavior does play a role in recovery. It plays a very big role, but it's not the problem, but it is a part of the solution. So here's what realistic expectations, and this is kind of a short little list, but this is what we should be thinking. These are realistic expectations. And it starts with being willing to understand what's really happening, right? We really are talking about a disorder. We're really talking about a disease. Recovery is not an event, right? Well, I'm not drinking, so everything should be fine. Well, give me that workbook, give me that thing that I can fill out, and we will do like we always do. Remember, in understanding addiction, you have to understand the traits of an addict, the characteristics of the overwhelming majority of addicts and alcoholics have really high IQs, have histories of success, a lot of problem solving, a lot of achievement and accomplishment. Well, we will bring that to bear in the early recovery process. And that's why we want workbooks. That's why we want things we can fill out faster than anybody else. We want to check off the things. We want that checklist. Just give me that thing so I can knock it out. And then we can return to our old way of living because no real change occurred. That is an expectation. We all need to look at that in an honest way because, as I was thinking about myself on both sides of this as I was writing this board as a family member and as a recovering addict, I creep back into that thinking sometimes. I think it never leaves us. The important thing is to recognize, always be willing to recognize the sickness that we're dealing with. And it's a real condition. The American Medical Association deemed alcoholism a disease in 1955, but they couldn't explain it. Now we can explain it. There was no brain research back then. There was no Nora Volkows of the director of NIDA, who's the one who was groundbreaking and bringing all of these patients into her laboratory and taking brain scans at various stages of the addiction and recovery process. We know what the brain looks like when it's craving. We know what the brain looks like when it's using, when it's far removed from using but still thinking. We know all of that stuff now. So they've literally proven what the American Medical Association determined was in fact a disease back in 1955. They just couldn't prove it. Okay, now that's not to let us off the hook, right? Oh, well, see, I've got this disease, so it's okay that I steal from my mom. No, that's the behavioral part moving forward that becomes such a big part of the solution. So the behavior is critical, but we'll get there. We're getting there. It's not the problem. Returning to normal is wrong thinking, right? This idea, if I could just return to normal, it's wrong thinking, because we're not really sure what that is. What are we saying when we think, man, if we could just get back to normal, if we could just go backwards? Okay, well, let's go backwards for a minute. If I could just get back to when I was 16, and then, because that was such a great year, right? When I was 20, that was such an awesome time. But then what happened? Keep playing that tape through. We don't want to go back at all. We do need to go back a little, because we need to feel some things, right? We need to touch on some things. We need to identify some things. We need to recognize some things so we can heal some things. But that's about it. We want to go forward. We want to establish completely new, because if we knew what normal was, we'd already be living it. We don't want to go backwards. And I can tell you this from personal experience. Whatever good things that you have from the past, I promise you God will bring those forward. Right? That's not our job. That's the surrendered part of this process. God will take care of that. I promise you. All of those good characteristics and traits will come forward. Remember, these are the realistic expectations. Bad behavior is the result of deeper internal issues. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about genetics, distorted self-image, unresolved pain, and a chronic sense of shame. Now, to family members, sometimes that is shocking. Right? What? No. They don't have a chronic sense of shame. Well, that's why we got to talk to them. That's why, as the patient, we'll say, as the identified patient, we got to be willing in this process to start talking about what we're thinking about. Right? And that can take some time. And so every dynamic can be a little bit different. It's going to have its own nuances. It's not as simple as, well, I've checked this off, I've checked that off, I've checked this off, I did that, I jumped through that hoop, I talked to these people, I went to that group, so I should be good by now. No, it's way more entailed than that. But the good news is we don't have to know any of that stuff. We don't have to figure any of that stuff out. We just have to be willing to get in the middle of it and follow, right? Surrender to it, trust the process, and that's a big part of the solution. I've got it over here on number 4. Trusting the process of change. And I'm not even talking about the process of, whatever. We'll say recovery, or the process of recovering from drug addiction, or anything like that. You can label it however you want to label it, but what we're really after is a transformation. Right? I've got to become a new creature. Mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and the way we do that isn't with a checklist. At least in us keeping a checklist, there is absolutely a very predictable process, and if we'll follow that, then we will become transformed. But it has to start with coming to the end of ourself, and the way we come to the end of ourself is kind of like we were just reading. We believe that God can restore us to sanity, and we put ourselves in a position for that restoration to happen, and all we got to do is just keep showing up, doing the next right thing, talking about what we're thinking about, following instructions, slowing down, all these things that we talk about all the time. And then number 4 on realistic expectations, distorted thinking is a huge part of what leads to the problem, which won't change overnight. This next column is even a little bit more stark. Distorted thinking, remember trauma, remember all, the shameful, shameless characteristics, all these things that we talk about in other ways. So this is kind of more of a general presentation. You guys know the details. Distorted thinking, man, if I've got distorted thinking, wait, I thought I had a drinking problem. No, we have a thinking problem. Our thinking is distorted. It doesn't make sense to say, have so much going for you in your life and think, man, it'd be a really good idea for me to blow this next opportunity. Man, I think I'm going to get so drunk and so high that I'm not even going to be able to make it to work anymore. That seems really smart to me. Right? But we're talking about an otherwise intelligent person. So what happened? Did they just get dumb, or are we dealing with distorted thinking? Well, obviously we're dealing with a brain disorder. There's a distortion. that just because we're not drinking or using today, that hasn't gone away. We have to be in the process of change and healing for it to go away. And then it does, and then it becomes stronger than ever before. Okay, so in keeping with reality, we're overcoming decades of extreme impulsivity, irrationally believing that nothing is ever right. That's that perfectionism, right? Needing everything to be a certain way, but never really feeling satisfied. You know, we can have wonderful experiences that we just won't allow ourselves to enjoy because we're obsessing about one little detail that we wish had been different. Right? Well, we're talking about a lifetime of this perspective, even though it makes no sense. Right? But it's there. It's this internal conflict within us, within the patient, that has to be healed. This disrupted brain development, which you guys remember from last week, we were talking about trauma, or was it the week before? I forget. Emotional management, emotional reasoning, memory development, stress responses, crippling anxiety, and a hyper focus on anything external, which in recovery terms, you know, we would say people, places, things, and situations. If only that guy wouldn't do that thing, then I could be okay. If only this other thing would happen, I wouldn't have to feel so anxious. If only I could get what I want when I wanted it, which could be anything from a material thing to your approval or your validation, then I'd be okay. You know, it's needing anything else to happen in order for me to be okay. Well, that's ingrained. That's part of that old programming to protect ourselves. That's not gonna change just because we didn't drink today, just because we didn't use today. We have to be in this process of change. Number 3 on overcoming decades of overanalyzing and intellectualizing our way through life. It's funny, you know, I do spend a lot of time asking God on what we're going to do each week, and it's crazy to me how whatever we end up talking about in this group, I either just had a conversation with someone about a large part of this topic, or I'm about to have a conversation with someone about this topic, completely unaware. Well, that's how this thing works. You know, that's how real change happens, but we got to be in the process. And we got to be surrendered to it. Letting God drive instead of us. And then amazing things happen. It's so crazy. And of course, I've been on my journey now for 22 years, and it never ceases to amaze me. So be willing to be in the middle of it, even though it doesn't make any sense. I'm in a hurry, and I don't have time to commit to this as deeply as I should, or whatever our excuses might be. So, well, we can always have our old life back. You know, I love that saying in AA, you know, try our way of life, and if you don't like it, you know, we'll refund your misery. You can always have your misery back. But that's why it's so important to be reality-based. Right? And you guys have heard me say this before. I think the only people that don't make it are the ones who could never accept that we were dealing with a life or death issue. Right? Think about that. That's the seriousness of what we're talking about. And everybody knows somebody who has died in this. Everybody has known someone who's died but came back. Right? We've come so close to the edge. And that, you know, talk about distorted thinking. We have come so close to the edge at times. I think oftentimes we've come close to the edge that we didn't realize we were that close to the edge. But then we start to feel a little bit better. And our thinking is, oh, shoot, man, I just got to get back to work and get a car and get da-da-da-da-da. Completely minimizing the seriousness of our situation. I'm not saying we can't have a car and a job, and I'm not saying any of that stuff. But when we think that's going to solve everything, or that we should already be, 5 years ahead of ourselves, that is a complete disconnect of the reality of what we're dealing with. right? Keep that in mind. Remember that, because it should slow you down a little bit. I'm not saying don't want stuff. You should want stuff. You should want to achieve things. But if we knew how to have the life that we wanted to have, or if we had the capacity to have that in a complete way, we would already have it. We have to learn how to do it because we suffer from this very serious life-threatening condition. Man, if you could own the seriousness of that, you're going to make it. Because then you're always going to be teachable. The minute we quit being teachable, the minute we go, oh, I'm unique, I'm not like these other people, I think I'll be fine, I just need a little something, something. I used to do that too. I did that for probably 10 years before I finally got to the end of myself and realized, shoot, man, my life isn't getting better, it keeps getting worse. Maybe the solution is not inside of me, maybe it's outside of me, right? Because if it was inside of me, I would already figured it out. But we will tell ourselves that. Remember the denial study. Denial adds 10 on average, adds 13 and a half years to our dysfunction. And a way to measure that is just look back in your life, say 11 to 15 years, and you will probably recognize an experience that you had where you had a need for change, but you ignored it. Right? You said, no, I'll be fine. I'm not like those people. I don't need that much help. And it doesn't even have to be substance abuse involved. It could be anything. You're just going through a life difficulty where you're starting to get a little off track. I think, of course, it's easier to see the older that you get. It might be hard for, a 15-year-old or a 20-year-old to go back 13 and a half years and go, yeah, I remember when I was in day school or daycare and there was this event and they were picking on me, and it might be a little bit hard, but don't miss the point of it, right? We had opportunities in the past, but our denial thinking told us, nah, I'll be all right. It's not that bad. I just need to get back to work, get back to school, get back to da. I just need a little something, and then I'll be okay. And here we are, after decades of just a little something else and never fully achieving this completeness that we really want, right? That we need to have if we're gonna have a successful life. Let me talk about 4 on this column, and then I'll move to the next one. Unrealistic standards. Now this kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier with abilities, right? Some amazing talent and a history of achievement and accomplishment, whether that's creative or athletic or whatever that might be. And we can set some really unrealistic standards for ourselves and even get close at times. And then fall short, even though the average person can't even get anywhere near what you've accomplished. But then interpreting that as I'm no good. Right? That's the distortion in the brain. That's what I'm talking about. We're talking about decades of that, can be decades of that thinking. Setting unrealistic standards for ourselves and not being satisfied unless we achieve it. The problem is we're determining that, right? The distorted brain is determining that, and it will never be enough, even though, everyone else might be here, right? No, it's got to be here, and we can fall very short of that, and it's still not enough, even though it's better than 90% of other people's efforts. And I'm not talking about comparing ourselves. That's actually one of the negative characteristics that we tend to do that holds us back. Pay attention to your unrealistic standards. Well, that comes from a place of unresolved pain, right? That's a trauma issue. So just because we're not drinking and using today, just because we didn't engage in that compulsive behavior today, doesn't mean all of these other things are just automatically worked out. They're not. It takes time to unpack this stuff. And then it takes time to learn new. And then it takes time to apply new. And then it takes time to practice new. Right? That's fourfold right there. But we will get stuck in our distorted thinking. No, I'm fine. Look, I feel better. I'm doing a little bit better. I think I'm good to go. How many times, get honest with yourself about it. How many times have we done that in the past, coming off of a difficult period? Well, the truth is we've done it every time, just depending on however long you've been in your dysfunctional process. Some of us, it might be 40 times. Some of us might be 20 times. Some of us might be 3 times. But it's always 100%. We gotta be honest about the seriousness of what we're dealing with, because there's a solution, and it works every time. That's the crazy thing about it. You'll hear people say, "Oh, well, you never know. It's recovery is a maybe thing. The addict's gotta want it more." No, the truth is recovery is absolutely achievable 100% of the time if we're willing to be in this process of change. It really is that simple. The early process of recovery, we're still in reality-based thinking, realistic expectations. It takes 12 to 18 months for the brain to heal. 12 to 18 months for the brain to heal from the damage that we've done. And remember, trauma begins impacting the brain. And we know that now. So which comes first? The chicken or the egg? Which comes first, trauma or using? Well, many clinicians will tell you that the age that you were when you first began using is when your emotional maturity stops developing. That's not true. Our emotional maturity stops developing when trauma impacts unresolved emotional pain we didn't know what to do with, stops or stunts our emotional process, which is why, remember that 8-year-old to 12-year-old time period, that's why when we're 14 and 15 and we get introduced to it, it becomes such a relief, right? The average age now is 12 of starting use. 12, isn't that crazy? Even if you just used, let's say the first time you used it was at 15, but you didn't use for 4 more years. It doesn't matter, because your brain, the adolescent brain, isn't fully developed until we're 25, or the brain isn't developed until we're 25. The adolescent brain at 15 is barely 50% developed, and the part that develops last is pretty much right here in this column. Emotional management, our reasoning, our memory development, our stress responses, how to handle stress, how to make healthy, wise, responsible decisions. Well, we just disrupted that, right? We stopped the development or stunted the development of that part of the brain at 14, 15, however old you were. So the good news is it can heal. It's going to heal, but we got to take it seriously. Even though, eventually we're going to go through periods where we're going to feel great almost every day. We still got to stay in the process because it's not done yet. 12 to 18 months. 12 to 18 months. And if we stay in that process of change for 12 to 18 months, giving our brain a chance to heal, then you're going to be able to establish a very solid foundation. And you don't recognize those brain changes. In the first 6 months you do. Those days where you're having a good week or a good couple of days, and you're starting to get hopeful, and you're starting to think, "Oh shoot, I got this. I don't need to do those things anymore." And then you wake up one day and you're in a dark funk. That's your brain is still healing. Your brain is adjusting. It's learning that you're not feeding it anymore with poison, and so it comes back online, and it takes a little bit to come back online. But in this process, your brain will literally repair and rebuild new pathways, or repair old pathways. Not all of them, but enough to still function at a really high level. enough that you wouldn't know the difference. This is why it's so dangerous, because there's still more to come. Don't gauge your progress on how you feel that day. Have the feeling, feel great, appreciate it, be grateful for it. Gauge your process of change based on your willingness to keep doing different things, and not the stuff that we decide, but what we're learning to do next. Right? Even though you feel bad, I've got a good story. I'll share this. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he's still early in his journey, and he still waking up and having some of those tough days, and he woke up and he started calling sick, and in fact he basically did call in sick. But then when he got off the phone, he started thinking, okay, liquor store opens at 9, I'm gonna go get some booze, I'm gonna come back home, I'm gonna watch movies all day and get drunk on the sofa. But he was in the process long enough to understand the importance of playing that tape through. And so he played the tape through. He didn't just hit the stop button at that first drink. I'm sitting on the couch and I'm drinking my beer or whatever he drinks. And then we hit the stop button. And then life gets disastrous and we don't understand why. Well, he played it on through, and he's like, okay, I'm going to do one thing. And so he got up and he took a shower. And then he started to go back to bed. He's like, well, I feel a little bit better. I'm going to put some clothes on. So he put some clothes on. He's like, well, I'm starting to get my head back a little bit. So I'm going to do this. Before you know it, he actually showed up at work on time. And he had a great day. And it was, and he wasn't even recognizing the significance of that. He was just telling me this story. I was like, do you realize what you just did? You are countering this distorted thinking. You're countering making decisions based on your feelings versus based on just doing the next right thing. Just do one thing. Just take out the trash. Just make your bed. Just do that one thing. We'll worry about the next right thing after we do that one. But in part of our distorted thinking is, it's funny because we'll play the tape through with all the stuff we don't want to do. But when it comes to stuff we do want to do, we'll stop that tape so quickly at the moment of instant gratification. No, we got to play the tape through. And if I'll do this, then this happens. And then I do this and I feel a little bit better. And then I do this other thing and then I feel even better. And before long, you've had a really productive day. And now you feel good about yourself. That's what esteem looks like. Even though you woke up in a funk. And here's the thing, the feelings don't always follow instantly. You still might be exhausted, you're worn out, maybe you do have some stress, life is crazy, you got a lot going on. That's okay. Keep doing the next right thing. And that's why I say don't base your progress on how you feel at any given moment. Base it on your willingness to do that next right thing. So take a shower, brush your teeth, make your bed, all these things we talk about. It takes months to stabilize mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. And on the spiritual part, for some of us, you're not stabilizing anything. You're developing it for the first time. And that's going to take a while. And it's just as important as the other ones, right? We know that. The big book talks about that. The Bible talks about that. We already know that people who really struggle, you may never drink or use again, but you end up being, what we call the dry drunk. You're miserable. You're your own higher power. Everybody else is your own higher power. You don't recognize that God's already got everything worked out for you. You're still trying to work everything out for you. If you want the life that you want to have, we have to be all in. Mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And that takes time. We're dealing with these internal battles. We're learning to cope without using. We're learning to cope without self-defeating. We're learning to cope without running away, without going back to bed, without arguing, whatever those characteristics are. We're learning how to live life in a way that we've never lived it before. We're learning how, so we've got to be in it. And it's tough. You guys know it's tough. I remember that it's tough. and we will still minimize the seriousness of the real problems. I've got this chart. You guys have seen it, but because we do it for groups sometimes. But we kind of these phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. It's different for everybody, but 90 days is a really good period to achieve, and then there's something special that happens between 90 days and 180 days, or the 6-month mark. Something happens. I can't really describe it, but I know, and I recognize it in my journey too, and other people tend to report that there's like a new level of freedom at 6 months. But then between 6 and 8 months, there tends to be a little drop. And this is all written down. I didn't come up with this stuff, but I have observed it, and I'll be darned if it isn't really, really close. That's really exciting, or that should be exciting. We don't have to do any thinking. We just have to follow. It's all lined out. If we'll trust the process, it literally is a science. Right? Addiction is predictable, and recovery is too. There's no maybe. I get, it's so funny to hear that stuff. Well, you never know. No, we do know. And just like anything else, the survival rate on this particular thing is 100% when the person seeks treatment. All we got to do is just be in it. There's no maybe to it. If I need a root canal, if I will go to the dentist, I will leave there with a root canal, right? Because they've got a whole process just waiting to treat me. If I have a broken leg, I got to go to the hospital, though. I got to seek the treatment. I got to be in the middle. I got to participate. And then I will actually get 100%. Wow, that's amazing. Well, substance abuse is the exact same thing. Now, the external battles, I kind of touched on them earlier, the kind of the unspoken deadlines. Well, I know, but I should be at such and such point by such and such time. Or maybe from a family perspective, well, they should be at a certain point by a certain time. What are we basing that on? Well, I just think that's how it should be, because that's what we want to see. Okay, well, that's not healthy. That's not helpful. And it really doesn't make any sense. How about, and especially for the patient, I think we put more pressure on ourselves because we just want to hurry up and get back to our old life. But we don't think of it that way. Well, start being honest with yourself when you're thinking that. No, I just got to hurry up and get back to the thing. Remind yourself of the seriousness of what we're dealing with. If you can't, we used to have, on the board we used to have, where's the evidence? So as you move through this process and you start thinking things, you start putting some deadlines on it, you start putting some standards on it, and you rationalize that by telling yourself, well, it's just the way I think, or I just think it should be that way. You got to start asking yourself for the evidence. Well, what does the evidence indicate? Well, the evidence indicates that when I step outside the process of change that I'm in, and I start making my own decisions for myself, I've got a long history of dysfunction. So maybe instead of, even though we don't like the answer, maybe instead we should follow what we're learning, not what I'm thinking. Well, but it makes me uncomfortable, and I'm just not like these people, whatever. All those things that we say, we got to quit that. That's that uniqueness. And that's a big external issue that we're overcoming. Uniqueness. Well, I think I've done enough for that recovery stuff. I think I'll be fine. Right? You see that a lot. And some of you guys have maybe even had that experience in your own journey. Like early on, when we first try to get sober, healthy, it's easy because remember, you're basing your success on past successes. well, I'm good at this, and I used to own that, and I built this, and I created that, and I did this, and da da da. And so we will treat early recovery, as another event. Like, I'm just going to knock out another semester. I'm just going to go start a newspaper route. I'm gonna do this thing. I'm going to get in. I'm going to knock it out so I can get to the next thing. Well, don't underestimate. That's exactly how our brains treat early recovery. We will default to that. We don't necessarily mean to do that, but we will default to that thinking. You can't treat it like an event. It's a process. And what's the definition of process? A series of actions. And we don't decide the deadline, right? Well, you'll know that you're changing because everything in your life and your perspective and the way you're managing your emotions and the way you're responding to conflict and stress and all these things are dissipating. That's how you'll know you're doing it, so keep doing it. We're real big at just the first sign of a little bit of change. We're like, okay, cool, I'm good, I'm out. No. Process. A series of actions, and we don't decide the deadline. Stay in it. Keep taking action, keep taking action, keep taking action. Based on what you're learning, not what you're deciding. And we will always get it. It's 100%. That's the science. So here's the solution. First thing we got to do is we got to get reality based. I won't read all of these, but I'll throw out a couple. We are dealing with a very serious condition that took decades. Just sit in that. I know I've already said it probably 18 times. That's how serious it is. We gotta wake up recognizing that, not out of fear, but as a reality check. Wait a minute, I'm thinking, man, if I could just get my bike fixed, I'll be good. What? That doesn't make any sense. Many people don't survive it. Oh, but I'm different, right? I'm unique. I'm different. I'll be fine. That's crazy thinking. You know, people die in this dysfunctional process for all kinds of ways besides just overdosing. I think that's the big thing. And by the way, this is a myth. While I'm on this, I got to say, because addicts always say, no, I'll never overdose because I know my tolerance level. Well, here's the thing. Overdose is not a tolerance issue. It's a brainstem issue. And that's why some people can take grams and grams and grams of heroin every day and live, and some people can take one shot of it and die. And I actually have a personal example. One person can take 60 Lortab a day and live on a regular basis, and one person can take 6 and die in their sleep. That's how my little brother died. 6. It's not a tolerance issue. We can step out in front of a car, right? We'll get in fights that we shouldn't be getting in, and we get knocked out and hit our head. There's so many different ways that we can die in our dysfunctional process. We could get mugged. We get robbed at gunpoint. We get carjacked, hijacked, whatever. Don't think, well, that'll never happen to me because I only drink beer. Okay, no, the thing is it's not about those specifics. It's we're living a dangerous lifestyle, whether you want to label it that or not. Right? We're living a life we don't want to be living. So keep challenging your idea that we're unique. It's so funny. I use pharmaceutical grade, this and that and the other. I got a prescription for my pills. We come up with all kinds of excuses. And our life stays miserable. We're in the exact same situation. Okay, I'm going to hurry up. I'm going to save that one. A chronic desire to quit and go backwards. Okay, what does that look like? This is worth talking about. And we all have those days. You could be having a good day, you could be having a bad day, it doesn't matter, but something clicks in your brain where you've decided, you know what, I'm good, I don't want this anymore. I'm gonna step out of this process. I'm gonna quit the process, whatever that might look like. I'm gonna change locations. I'm gonna change my support group by getting rid of it. Right? We're not like moving from one to another. We're just like quitting so that I can go backwards. How much that makes no sense. But we will do it because we have distorted thinking. So recognize that thinking in yourself and use it to regroup. This is why we got to always be talking about what we're thinking about. If you're holding all that stuff in and you're not sharing it with anybody, you're going to fail. Right? Because you've got no support. We could be surrounded by people who can help us, but if we don't ever talk about what we're thinking about, then they can't help us. We're not letting them help us. Well, that's a big part of our problem. Achieving recovery is hard. Okay, that might be the most reality-based thinking. Yeah, achieving recovery is hard. If it was easy, more people would be doing it. If it was easy, we would have done it 10 years ago. But staying sick is harder. Achieving recovery is a walk in the park at this point. If you'll bring a right perspective to it. Wait a minute, recover what? Being sober and happy and healthy and 3 meals a day and good shelter and a car to drive and work to go to, that's hard? No, what's hard is waking up behind a trash can in an alleyway. What's hard is crawling around in the carpet looking for your crack. What's hard is being in full withdrawal at 4 a.m., but the liquor store doesn't open until 9 or 10. Distorted thinking has taken over our thinking. We have to be willing to see it from a new perspective, and be willing to tolerate a little bit of discomfort. It's like, oh, I'm so frustrated today. So that's what my mentor used to tell me all the time. Oh man, I'm so riled up. I'm frustrated. I'm irritable. I'm restless. I'm discontent. He'd say, so? Did you go to work today? Yeah. Did you do good at work? Yeah. Did you go to that meeting I told you to go to? Yeah. Well, okay, so you're doing well. You just don't feel good enough or whatever. So keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. Because that's part of that programming. Your brain is learning how to think in healthy ways. Did you do the next right thing today? Yes. But I don't feel good. I'm feeling anxious. So keep doing the next right thing. In no literature for recovery does it say that you need to. You're only growing if you feel like you're growing. We're never instructed to try to feel better. We're only instructed to do better. And that's the behavioral part of this. We can take the one thing we have control of, which is our own behavior, and if we will use our behavior to follow a new course of action that someone else gives to us, and I don't mean random people, I mean a long history of the solution, and if we will follow that, regardless of how we feel, we will have an entirely new way of living. But we got to be in it, because it takes time. I think when I was thinking back on my journey, I think it was probably 3 or 4 years with me before I really got to a point where I felt very solid in my foundation. It didn't mean that, I was just sitting at home on the couch for 4 years. I was doing all these things that I advise everybody else to do. And it's crazy because when you're doing that, you're going to have all kinds of successes. But you keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it. But you're still thinking about using. You're still having stressful experiences where you're like, man, a couple of drinks would be good right now. You're still going to have some of those thoughts. But you keep doing it, and you keep doing the next right thing, keep doing the next right thing, keep doing the next right thing. And then you wake up one day and you realize, like we were talking about earlier, you wake up one day and you realize drinking and using is not even an option anymore. I don't even think about it anymore. It's gone. But we have to be transformed to get to that point. So be in it. What's something we got quick 3 minutes. Maybe I took a little too long, but what's something, if anybody wants to share, something that you recognize in your own early recovery experience that maybe is an unrealistic expectation, something that you recognize that you're overcoming, however you want to share it.
I was thinking about when this whole process started, and my first reaction, which was not good, was to make sure that nobody knew what was happening. How's everything going? Fine. And then of course that didn't work, and just kind of came to the end of the road, because we didn't know what to do. We had no experience with this.
Yeah.
We had not a clue what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And so thank heavens for Al-Anon. And I know I've talked about them before, but they really were a lifesaver for me anyway. And they have, because I thought I had the only child on the planet that this had ever happened to, And, when I got to these meetings, I thought they were there. They were going to tell me how to fix him.
Yeah.
They were there to tell me how to fix me. And I didn't understand that for a long time. Mm-hmm. And then, eventually when you start hearing everybody's stories, they're different, but they're the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are lots of similarities, and you're going, oh, okay. And then there's something to learn every single time you go. There's something to learn about yourself.
Yeah. And
how you're seeing things, and so that's kind of what happened,
Yeah.
And I had not a clue what any expectations should be.
Yeah.
Or, any of that. So.
That's so commonplace, or everything's fine, we're thinking we're going to figure it out. Scott.
I'll add one other thing, that there's this misconception, okay, that, if, the individual, okay, goes through a detox program, that they come out healed.
Yeah.
And it's totally false.
Yeah.
All it does is it's a temporary fix, okay? And you need, like you say up there, it's at a minimum 12 to 18 months, after that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but the whole detox thing, it's sometimes sold, I think, as, a fix. Send you through a detox, and you come out and you're fixed. And
that's so true. That's part of our personal experience. It feels, you feel misled. If we can just get the body free of all of its impurities and the brain free, then everything's going to be good, and you'll be back at work next week.
I'm not saying that that's not an important first step.
Yeah.
But it's not like the end all.
Mm-mm. It's the beginning, and that's certainly a healthy way to look at it. And not everybody needs like medical detox, but we are everybody's detoxing, and our families are detoxing emotionally, right? Maybe mentally, maybe you guys can speak to that, but that is the beginning stage. Is before anything else can happen, we've got to detox. And that puts us in a position for the next part, which puts us in a position for the next part. and this thing keeps going and keeps going, and then even well after we're transformed, you know, something that we haven't talked about in a while, but it's a critical part. Once you've established a good, consistent foundation, well, now we need to solidify it. Because we're real big on, okay, well, I've achieved this level, let's go to the next level. I've achieved this, let's go there. No, once we get to a certain level, we need to hang out there for a while. We need to solidify it, especially with our crowd. Which means, so keep doing it. Because we'll get a job and be like, okay, I got a job, now I need a car.
Along with that, normal is, I mean, that's just, I'm just wrestling with normal. So, all too often, for the parent or for the family, normal, what I've come to define through this process is that normal for me is, I no longer, it's not a problem. I'm back to where I'm not worried about it. I'm, you know, back to, like you said, you know, not only does no one else know, I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
So I sleep better at night.
Yeah, right.
But normal, getting back to normal was what the problem was.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, getting back to what was a problem, I mean, the dysfunction, you know, so like,
Yeah.
no, we've got to create the new normal.
Yes.
And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hovering, and we were talking about it, you know, as a parent, it's like, all right, what's next, you know? And
Yeah.
he's even been good lately about put the brakes on. Put the brakes on.
Good.
And like you said, let's hover right here.
Yeah.
And create a new normal.
Yeah. Well, that's really powerful, and I'm glad that you're sharing that. And then as family members, being willing to receive that and take a look at that. Oh, wow, you know, kind of reconsider maybe some of your ideas. Because that's what he's learning. That's what the patient is learning. Wait, we got to slow down. We got to slow down. When you've spent your whole life being an overachiever and trying to go faster, we need to go faster, bigger, faster, bigger, faster, bigger. And all of a sudden, we've got this situation where the opposite is called for. It's confusing. It doesn't make sense. The mind has a really hard time coming to grips with that. No, we're fine. We just need to hurry up and go 150 miles an hour again.
Well, accepting that it's not the finish line.
Not the
Process.
finish line.
It's improvement. It's forward. Not.
So that's huge. Just recognizing that and owning that and being, you know, we'll always say the patient can recover on their own, but when the family is involved in the process, then everybody can heal and you end up with a much more complete situation. And that's pretty awesome.
I think one thing is love returns.
Mm.
I think there can be a break, you know, and it the process allows love to return. Totally.
What a neat way to put that. What were you gonna say? Oh. You want to give you a minute? Okay. Anything else to add? You want to say anything, Tabor?
Yeah, I just think, in my situation at least, I decided to start the process of recovery 3 months ago. I know it'll be tomorrow. So as the 90-day period has kind of gone by, it's that what's next is what we're going through right now, is what we're kind of referring to, and especially it being in September, now December. The new year's like a couple weeks away.
Yeah.
Let's have a plan to, and there's nothing wrong with planning, but like you said, being still, I've got a long ways if I look back 3 months ago. So
Yeah.
let's be, satisfied, or don't want to be content, we're always growing, but just being okay with where we're at right now is not a bad thing.
Mm-mm.
We're a very much, go, 150 miles an hour family sometimes. So sometimes we just gotta pull back.
Yeah.
See what we're working with and be okay with what we're going through.
That's going to work out a lot of stuff, not just mentally and emotionally, but spiritually. That's the slowing down. It just takes you to a whole new level spiritually. So be in it. And not every day is going to be a zinger, but what's that saying? My worst day sober is still 10 times better than my best day drinking or whatever. Wow, what if we could live like that? Being willing to tolerate discomfort. Well, that may sound silly, but we've spent a lifetime trying to counter that, right? We get uncomfortable, we get anxious, irritable, restless, and discontent, and we think the sky is falling. Oh my God, I feel anxious. I am not supposed to feel anxious. And so all of our decision making gets centered around changing the way I feel in that moment versus feel it. Okay, so you're anxious, so talk about it. But keep doing the next right thing. That's the behavioral part. That's good stuff. I don't really know how to respond, but I see you guys on Facebook, and thanks for watching. And I need to learn how to do emojis or something. Okay, well, thanks for watching on Facebook. We'll be back next week. We're going to shut her down. See ya.
I'll say one other quick thing. Just I'm gonna brag on Taylor.
Yeah.
I went to the return to the belly of the beast today.
Oh.
Went to Stillwater.
Whoa.
Stuff and moved out all his stuff, and he had to walk in and have the PTSD of his old place and everything, and it was. I think it was good. It was painful.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, everything was like firing off on like all the cylinders. Like, I mean, the smell, it smelled like the day I left. The people, the interactions, where's the people, places,
Yeah.
situations, and things, is it? It's right. It's
Yeah,
right there,
people, places, things, situations.
Yeah, I mean, all four of those were like just popping off, and to leave there, I mean, I felt bad, yeah, because I just went through like all the moments of like the past 4 years I've had, but I also felt immense gratitude spiritually and on a family connection that the day I left there, I did not think that I would become a permanent resident of Edmond again, and I didn't want to leave Stillwater.
Yeah.
But to go back there and see how I was living, it was like my eyes were opened to the amount of sin that was going on and the dysfunction that I was living in that was causing me to push on forward and to my old ways. And I just felt great to finally see what I was actually living as.
I'm so glad you didn't do that by yourself. Yeah, we adapt. It's neat to be so far removed from it and look back, even though it's only been a few months. You adapted into that place. Just slowly, it's the frog in the boiling water. Slow deterioration of bottom rungs on the ladder that you would never have agreed to. Right? Hey, by the way, why don't you engage in 5 years from now? You'd be like, oh no, I will never live like that. You're never gonna find beer cans all over my floor. You're never, whatever the scene looked like. But then there it was. That's the sickness.
I just think, like, you asked me whenever I was 18, can you see yourself doing such and such, beer cans everywhere, places trash, just people that you don't even know inside your house party?
Yeah.
I would have been like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I just came from.
Oh. Wow, that's huge. So, people are still there?
Yeah, just roommates.
Yeah.
Just roommates.
Wow.
And it was good to see them again, but even now, like, going through the groups, the classes, the whatever, and then going back and talking to them, I can see the difference in the emotional maturity. And I can see this happening in their lives too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge and it's sad.
I hopefully was right. Correct me if I was wrong, but he will take on their reaction to his changed circumstances. And I tried to tell him that you can't do that. It's a lot of they're avoiding him because it's exposing themselves.
Yeah.
to it,
Yeah.
And they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so if they're pulling away, you can't view that as a and them not being a good friend, you got to view that as their own issue.
But it feels like rejection.
Yeah, and they also
Yeah.
they also just like don't really know how to deal with it themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going through it right now.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, and that's part of the, the part of recovery where we learn how to let other people be who they are, what they are, where they are, how they are. It's not about me, right? Put that, they go in the old friends box, whatever that might look like.
And like leaving today, that's the exact mindset that I had. Because usually, I mean, I know it's only been 3 months. Obviously, it's a lot longer road to go. But usually, I would pin all of their interactions or reactions to what I'm doing, or just things that are going on the outside, and somehow apply it to myself.
Yeah.
But now that I've kind of, dipped my toe into the waters of like the truth and reality, being reality based,
Yeah.
I know that had nothing to do with me. And if it does, I mean, tolerate the discomfort, because it's always going to pass. I mean, they're delusional too. They're delusional thinking too. I mean, they've been doing the same thing that I've been doing. I just got out of it.
Right.
A little bit.
That's huge. I'm glad you had that experience with support, right? And I think you'd have been fine even if you'd gone by yourself. But man, that's a whole lot better to have somebody be bouncing that off and going through that stuff. Those aren't things you wanna risk. While we're on this, we probably need to cover that. Don't take any risks. The minute we tell ourselves, "Oh, it's fine. I'm just worried about Bob. I'm just going to go check on Bob," even though I know Bob's going to be surrounded by liquor bottles and cocaine mirrors. I won't use. I'm just going to see how he's doing.
And I was really worried whenever I first started this process, because I knew Halloween was coming up, and I knew it was on a Friday. It's like a thing that everyone has been talking about, and I was really anxious to it building up, because I had immense FOMO.
Yeah.
Now, just a couple months and a week, after the date, I look back and I have absolutely no regret for not going down there during homecoming or during Halloween, and even as far as my birthday too. I mean, there's just absolutely no regret.
Well, that's just
fast forwarding the tapes.
maturity of how insignificant a day or an incident is. Where in the youth, I mean, it's the biggest thing ever.
That's such a great example. That earlier, it's like, okay, do you realize what you've been through? And all we can think about is, man, if I could just get to this Halloween party, everything would be awesome. There's a disconnect there. And now you see that. That's so awesome. That's a lot of maturity.
I mean, it's awesome for like 3-4 hours, and then get to sleep in a bed, and then you're throwing up, and then all the stuff that comes with it. You got to fast forward the tapes, and tolerating discomfort are like the two best solutions that I've been using in the process.
Yeah, don't hit the stop button at midnight. Right, go on to 5 a.m.
Yeah.
and then 6. The next 3 days, and oh man.
I'm running the good tape and the bad tape.
Yeah.
So which one am I?
Pick
I
one.
want to choose 12 hours from now. Which movie do I want to watch?
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, great input, guys. I'm gonna cut you loose. That's good stuff. Is Talon gonna be home for the holidays? Is he staying
tomorrow? Well, it was a total move out, and which will be complete tomorrow. I'm gonna return to get his bed, so it's either on the floor or up home tomorrow.
But he can have the sofa until then. Okay, I guess.
We threw in. So let me just tell you, Dad went and assessed whether this stuff was getting brought home or not.
Yeah.
We made about 3 trips to the dumpster.
Oh my God, that's classic. Whose Father? Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
So tell him what your brother, your younger brother did Tuesday night, the song, since we just said that.
What?
What did he do?
He's in 8th grade choir, and he sung the Lord's Prayer in Swahili.
Yeah.
At the concert.
Wow. Sorry, I didn't know you were referring to the.
Yeah. So they learned it, and he had a solo in it and sung it.
How cool. So he's a good singer?
Well, he's
just took a swing at it.
13. No, he's
Well, he's
trying-
13, so I mean,
Most
not Michael Jackson.
13-year-olds' voices are changing,
Yeah.
and so they're
in the process of changing.
But he can carry a tune. That's
He
cool.
understands music more than all
I have
of
to
us.
show you this.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, he got
And the staff got the ring.
Yes.
So that's,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
and it has their name on it.
That's so cool.
And this is what's in the inside.
Wow. Wow.
They were pretty excited. I said, so are all you guys gonna wear these all on the same day? And he said, yes.
Yes. One of my mentors won 2 Super Bowls, and he wears his rings all the time,
Really?
or at least he used to. Yeah, it's like they do. They're just so gaudy, and they take over your whole hand, but
Yeah.
you can get away with
You
it.
could punch somebody out with that.
If you earned it, you can wear it. You don't have to
He said
explain
he has
it.
somebody he knows that works for the Lakers, and is it the Lakers?
Who's got like 5 rings?
Yeah, he's got 5 rings. He does. 5 rings.
Wow. Well, just
a buddy
wait.
of Tyler's who works for the Lakers
Oh,
has been there long enough.
Because
to
he's
get
going to
hired.
probably have another one next year.
Them-
That's so cool. Okay, we'll see you guys.
Okay,
Thanks for
thank you.
coming. Oh, what have we got going on here? Oh, wait. Oh. Oh. The identified patient, the family dynamic, and it's so easy to think, well, once they're not using anymore, right? Once the identified patient isn't using anymore or isn't stuck in whatever that dysfunctional process is, then surrender to it, trust the process. And all of a sudden we've got this situation where the opposite is called for. It's confide it, especially with our crowd, which means so keep doing it, because we'll get a job, be like, okay, I got a job, now I need a car.
Along with that, normal actions, rest of normal. So all too often, parent, family, normal, what I've come to define through this process
Yeah.
sleep every night.
Yeah, right.
But normal, getting back to normal was what the problem was.
Yeah.
I mean, getting back to what was the problem. I mean, the dysfunction. So like,
Yeah.
no, we've got to create the new normal.
Yes.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Recovering, and we were talking about it. As a parent, it's like, all right, what's next? And
Yeah.
it's even been good lately about break something.
What's next? Let's get it on. Okay, so this is under. Let's see here. Save settings. Oh, wait. Live activity? Edit uncertain. Oh, okay. Let's see. But see, that's not true because it's a featured link. I don't know, man. I just don't know. That makes no sense whatsoever. title a little bit and added some things just about unrealistic expectations. And it's so easy, we talk about things like the identified patient, the family dynamic, and it's so easy to think, well, once they're not using anymore, right? Once the identified patient isn't using anymore or isn't stuck in whatever that dysfunctional process is, then we should all return to normal pretty quickly, right? Everything is going to get back to order. Because, and of course, you guys can attest to that, as in the family dynamic, this dysfunction, or we'll say the dysfunctional process, has been going on for a while. Some of us a little bit darker, some of us a little bit longer, but it's all relevant to whatever that family dynamic is, and so it's exhausting. And I think I'm gonna work on this one for next week. It's exhausting, it's terrifying, it's wrought with fear, confusion, ongoing anxiety, hopelessness. We could just keep going on describing it. It'd be interesting for you guys to kind of share some of your input too. So I'm going to blow through the board so you have time to do that. So by the time